Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The request was made, so this is my, it says town manager's report on DPW. I want to clarify this. There was discussion about issuing a report. A report is a standalone document. This is a presentation that I have some narrative that goes along with it. So this is, I just prepared. I just finished it recently as I fully formulated my thoughts on what I wanted to present this evening. So, the request was to give my impressions about the Department of Public Works, and the following presentation is intended to give background information about the department and an assessment of operations, not a personnel evaluation. I would ask that the board holds questions and comments until the presentation is finished. It's about 30 slides, and I will go as quickly as I can. So the Public Works Department statement. This is, and I should say, some of this information is you'll be seeing in the fiscal year 2015 budget proposal. A lot of this is reflective of the new standards for GFOA budgeting. In the Department of Public Works consists of multiple divisions collectively responsible for maintaining and improving the town's public spaces and infrastructure. Next slide. There's a lot of words on here, but this just describes the 5 divisions: the engineering division, the highway division, the grounds division, the building maintenance division, and the water and sewer division, and goes generally into some of their responsibilities. In addition to the 5 divisions, I wanted to highlight that the Department of Public Works also interfaces with several boards and commissions in the town, including the Select Board, who are also the Water and Sewer Commission, Parks and Recreation Committee, Recycling Committee, Tree Committee, Conservation Committee, and the Community Preservation Committee. What you have here before you, which is kind of hard to read, is the organizational chart for the Department of Public Works. And the only thing I would note is that at the top you have, the Select Board, Water Sewer Commission, the Town Manager, and the direct line through to the to the Director of Public Works, who's also the tree warden. But as you can see with the dashed lines and other things, there are a lot of entities that are may not have direct authority, but have a lot of say into what happens at the Department of Public Works, or what should happen at the Department of Public Works. That really is, many org charts are cleaner when the top has fewer parties and the responsibility spreads out the further you get down. That is obviously a lot of top-heavy input on the department. Next slide. So these are the 5 divisions, and this just gives you a quick snapshot of what they do. The engineering department in the administration basically have oversight of the other divisions. They prepare annual budget and capital plans. They deal with a lot of the permitting and infrastructure, and they manage the infrastructure projects. They ensure compliance with regulations. They oversee safety and the environmental management systems, as well as the equipment replacement program. Collectively, the highway, sanitation, recycling, and grounds divisions maintain 92 miles of roads, including sidewalks and drainage systems. There's also 138 acres of parks and grounds. They continue to advance the infrastructure improvements and maintenance, and they maintain the street and traffic advisory signs. Building maintenance division, there are 6 school buildings and 7 town buildings that keep them very busy. They also oversee capital improvement projects for public buildings and other facilities, and they also play a central role in monitoring and reducing energy expenses and consumption, as well as oversee the custodial services. And then the Water and Sewer Division maintains about 90 miles of water and sewer mains each. There is a pump station for the water, 2 pump stations for the sewer. They also do the utility billing, and actively maintain the water and sewer infrastructure, including our water tower. And they are transitioning to a unidirectional flushing program. You can see the staffing level here. This is the full-time equivalents. There's about 38 in total. If I know the board knows this, but for those who may be watching at home, if you wonder how you can have 11.46 full-time equivalent employees, it's because this is an allocation of time, and because the water and sewer utilities are enterprise funds, if a highway crew goes out to excavate for a water main replacement, that time is charged to the enterprise fund. And so there's a somewhat complicated formula, but generally speaking, it's 38 full-time equivalent employees. So the next part of this presentation is about operations, specifically about contracted services. That's something we talk about. I have it divided into two categories: outsourcing and insourcing. It'll take forever if I go through all these slides, but I just wanted for your future consumption to lay out what functions are currently outsourced, and to show you some level of comparison where available, where savings are achieved, or where the DPW does not possess the specific ability or equipment or certifications to perform certain tasks, and to give you a sense of how that evaluation is made in terms of what to contract out and what to do in-house. And so the outsourcing part shows you the functions that the evaluation has been made to contract out based on factors we've tried to briefly capture. And then the future slides on insourcing will have the reverse on why they are done in-house versus contracted out. I guess what I would say is, if you can go back, Paul, just one. I want to see if I can highlight one here. So on the grounds, I want to say mulching is a good example. There are those who do a mulch blower. That is a significant cost savings in terms of man hours, and how a contractor can come in and do all of the work for the mulching for the town in 3 days, versus between mowing and trash collection and all of our other duties, it would take several weeks to be able to have our limited grounds crew. As you can see, there was only 5 full-time equivalent employees to be able to do all that work. So that's one where it is a cost savings as well as a time savings. Next slide. Oh, back one. So here's those for the water and sewer and engineering. Again, there are certain things that the DPW is just not equipped to do. Replacing mains is something that usually requires an excavator. We do not own an excavator. So that's one of the reasons why we outsource a lot of that. Video inspections of sewer lines, that's a specialized service that contractors do just about everywhere that I'm aware of. Next slide, Paul. So on outsourcing, there are a lot of functions, and it's a pretty substantial portion of the department's budget that gets committed to private vendors for, again, a variety of reasons that are reviewed routinely. On what I'm calling insourcing, stump grind is an example of one that we were able to save significant money by purchasing a piece of equipment and using our own labor, largely because our tree contractor bills us by the size of the stump, and it does not include loam and seed. If you go to the next slide, Paul. There is, like, main flushing is something that we do in-house that we save significant amount of money on. We do have the jetter truck that helps us do that. Next slide. And one I want to highlight is in the maintenance, we used in-house personnel we are using in-house personnel to do a planned renovation of the Human Resources and Accounting Office. We had bid it out, and it was $3,000 more to do the private to use a private contractor, but the contractor would have done it somewhat more quickly, about a week versus 13 days. The evaluation was made that the cost savings was a better value, and we were willing to be flexible on the schedule. But that's how most of these things break down, 3 ways. The ability to do it in terms of what you can outsource and what you can insource. The ability to have the service on demand when you need it, especially in an emergency. Something like snow plowing that we're experiencing tonight, we would not want to be at the mercy of a contractor showing up if we needed emergency services. The time that it takes to provide the service, in the case of the mulching, and the overall cost and equipment that may be needed. So again, I just want to highlight that there are a lot of functions that, in terms of how the department operates, it operates largely. One of the key things of its operations are doing these analyses and making these choices on an annual basis. And I think the information here shows that most of the evaluations are achieving the goal of being either more efficient, more cost-effective, or more timely. Next slide. So this section deals with organizational performance. When through my interview and when I started the job, I perceived that there were really top 5 overall areas of concern, and this is not meant to be an exclusive list of concerns. I know we've spent a lot of time talking about the department. I have spent more time working with and on the DPW than any other agency within the town organization. To some extent, they have the broadest scope of work of all of the agencies, of all the departments. And I will say that they generate the most feedback. They generate the most complaints, but they also generate, by a pretty healthy margin, the most compliments of any of our departments. And I think that's something that's worth noting. And to some extent, I think what I've described is probably many other departments of public works in many municipalities. So the 5 areas that were, I think, areas of focus were project management issues, which are highlighted by the Maple Road project, the management of town assets, and some of this was highlighted well by Richard in his presentation. Infrequent inspections. The work plan certainly gave off the appearance of being reactive instead of proactive. Facility needs, and that refers specifically to the DPW facility down on Pondside Road, and the need to have that facility be upgraded. Resource allocation, and that is the organizational structure and how resources are assigned currently. And then, the fleet composition and use, and that's the size and number of vehicles and equipment, and also enforcing proper use of those vehicles. So I wanted to just highlight briefly, some of the steps we've taken since I arrived to address these issues. And I don't want to say that we have solved everything, because we certainly haven't, but I do feel like we have made meaningful progress, and I just want to highlight some of that. So project management, I think the biggest example of some of the gains we've made are on the Meriwether Woodside Williams drainage improvements. And one of the things that we did differently is we had weekly project meetings with the DPW managers, and that's the representatives, the highway division, the water and sewer division, the engineering division, and the director and I would meet. And we would review the progress of the work. We'd identify issues that have come up, field conditions, impacts on neighbors. Certainly when we had those issues with the gas mains, we spent a lot of time talking about that and making sure we were in communication with the gas company and the neighbors. And through those discussions, we made project decisions about, yes, we have a contract and a scope of work, but within that scope of work, there are sometimes decisions that need to be made based on how things are unfolding in the field. And rather than have, say, one division head make a decision without, talking to the other, we made sure that the people who were most involved in the project were in the room and discussing it, and that I think we got a good communication process and a good decision-making process out of these meetings. We did not use it all that much, but we did use the Blackboard Connect system to communicate important notices about the project. And one of the things we did was specialize the outreach through Blackboard Connect by using the mapping component, where we just created a map area of the people who would be most affected by it versus having it go town-wide, because we did not want to overuse the system and have people in town who aren't really impacted by the project be getting notices unnecessarily. The other thing that I did is I visited the site quite a bit. I'll be candid and say I enjoy getting out in the field. I do like project management. Is something I have in my past experience. I like watching the equipment work and the trucks roll, and you see the pictures there of the work in the trench and seeing how complex the work was, and the work that was done, the outfall, which is the picture below, and the improvements made there, and just watching things evolve over time is something I personally enjoy. But it also, I think, sent the message to the contractor that all eyes were on the project and that expectations were very high, and that as town manager, I was watching directly. And I think that helped improve communication and decision making in the project. I think that same approach helped with the water main replacement further south on Longmeadow Street. Is it not Barrington Road? Is it Barrington Road? And then, the decision on the winter shutdown, we decided to end the project before it crossed Longmeadow Street to avoid the risk of some kind of unfortunate circumstance or some kind of snafu happening in the field. And that work will begin in the early spring, along with the work on Laurel Street, which is the same contractor. So, I think no project is going to go 100% smoothly, but I thought when issues came, we avoided some issues through our decision-making process. When issues did come up, I thought the things we had put in place in the new processes we established helped us minimize the impact of those issues. And I had this slide in here, and I want to thank Mark had contacted me suggesting that we tell the full story here, and I just want folks to know the reason why when dirt is piled up and you're stuck in traffic because of there's a police detail there holding you while loaders are moving and dump trucks are there, it can be kind of frustrating. Certainly, the situation with the gas mains was very frustrating for the residents. But these projects, wherever they're done, they improve the lives of town residents, and that really is what the goal is and what the ultimate results of the projects are. And I just wanted to show the feedback that we received from some of the neighbors who really, the people who were most affected by the project were those on Merriweather and in that neighborhood, but the people who most benefited were those upstream, if you will, off of Woodside. Michael Shear wrote, "The water sewer problem appears to have been solved thanks to the work you did. There has been no backup of the sewer during the heaviest rainfalls. We are appreciative to the town of Longmeadow for the work that was performed to deliver the flood alleviate the flooding problem that we have experienced at our home at 54 Brookwood Drive. The flooding problems began in 2005 with our garage and basement being flooded 4 times, the last 2 times during summer 2012. Since the additional storm drain line was added in 2013, we have not encountered any flooding issues." And there's another one to say that concludes, "Needless to say, we are very pleased that this project finally came to be. I know there are a number of other problem areas around town, and hopefully the Select Board sees this project as a positive thing for the town and continues to fund future infrastructure projects. Thank you again for all you've done." So I just want to show that these things do have their intended effect. They move the water and they improve their lives, but also their property values. So on the issue of asset management, one of the things I had reported on at a previous meeting is the implementation of the Cartograph work management system. I know there had been some discussion about why did we select Cartograph. When any kind of software program that we add to our suite of programs that we use is evaluated, the preference by the IT department, which I support, is ease of integration with existing systems and time and cost effectiveness. We already had a cartograph pavement management system that had been invested in heavily by in both time and also resources through work with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. We also have Munis as our finance software, and we also have iWorks. And through the evaluation of those three systems, Cartograph came out to be the best option for us based on those criteria. And as I presented before, and you'll see in a moment, I think it'll be excellent for helping us manage work. It'll give the community a way to, the citizens' request form you can see there. I think Richard highlighted the fact that there are a lot of things out there that people don't notice, and including employees of our Department of Public Works, and that's something we do need to work on. That is an issue that they have acknowledged they need to improve on. But I think once things are pointed out to them, they are very good at including the correction of it in their work. And so if we have the opportunity for residents to notice things and an easy platform for them to submit requests for repairs, a cleanup, a new sign, something like that, it'll make the workflow a lot more smooth and improve the level of standards that we want to see improved. You can go to the next slide for me, Paul. One of the things that the cartograph system will be to evaluate each task on a resource and timeline basis for completion, and we'll be able to evaluate what takes the longest, what is the most expensive, what are we really good at. This level of evaluation, in addition to our StatNet program that we're going to be engaged in with the Collins Center, I think will establish a framework for a solid asset and work management system for the department going forward. Okay, next slide. And to get at the issues of things not being done that should be done simply because they weren't noticed, one of the strengths of the cartograph system is the work scheduling. And if you build, as you can see here, this is a sample, but as you can see, they built into their work schedule investigations, inspections, cleanings, routine things. And if you develop a comprehensive work program that is recurring, then you don't need to think about, like, say, for example, you want to inspect the traffic signals, the crosswalks, every other month. No one has to remember that second month that it needs to be done. It just gets built into the work program. We do have work management programs now, but they are not advanced to this level, and this will be a great upgrade for how we do things. So next slide. So the discussion about the facility upgrade was something that has been talked about a lot. One of the things that some of the actions I've taken is I've reviewed the siting study by the task force. We have talked about that a little bit here. We did coordinate an open house of the facility to show the needs to the community and the condition of the facility and why it needs to be upgraded. One of the things we heard was, if it was such a need, why haven't we requested funds for improvements? And so we took that admonition to heart and have requested $1 million in our fiscal year 2015 capital plan for short-term improvements. To some extent, this request is late evolving. So in terms of specific plans and cost estimates of what will get done with that money, we don't have that in hand as of yet. You need to spend some money on design to really accurately figure that information out. But the priorities are a new salt shed, new gas pumps, improvements to the maintenance bays so the larger trucks can be worked on indoors. Right now, if one of the larger plow trucks breaks down, the mechanics have to go outside, and if they need to get underneath it, they have to basically lay in the snow and try and fix it. And we want something that obviously is much better for them to do good mechanical work. But a commitment from the board is needed to really move forward on this. Next slide. Of course, one of the big barriers to making meaningful changes is the floodplain that exists on Pondside Road. As you can see, the gray shaded area, which is really the best part of the site, most of it is in either the 100 or 500 year floodplain, including the salt shed and gas pumps, and a substantial portion of the maintenance bays. The parts of the site that aren't in the floodplain, you can see to the right side of the slide there, including the recycling area. The historic uses of the site would probably raise some questions about the conditions of the soil for building, large buildings on there to house the department. So that's one of the issues that we cannot escape, and it would, there's an extra level of investments that is needed. But again, that's something that the select board commits to addressing this issue. It will just be a question of cost. Just for an example, though, in terms of going back to the priorities, the salt shed is in tough condition. It's hard to, if you have multiple storms in a row, it's hard to load it effectively. It's being held up by telephone poles. This is just an example of something that could be done now, and it would be an investment that even if the DPW facility moved to a different site, it's a kit, so it could be put up and then taken down and moved to a new site. There's no foundation. It's just concrete block sidewalls. So this is an example of something that could be done as a short-term solution to the issues that we're facing now. So on the issue of resource allocation, and this is something that came up when we discussed the consolidation that occurred under the charter change. And I could find no evidence that an organizational analysis had been performed when these three other divisions, parks, ground, or two other divisions, really, parks and buildings, were lumped in with the rest of the departments. And did we have the equipment, manpower, and budgetary resources aligned properly? And I know that the director has been working on that issue, but we were hoping to find, based on regional and national best practices, how what's the ideal allocation of resources. And so we drafted an RFP to hire a consultant based on a similar study that was done in Andover that Richard had brought to our attention. And the goal was to evaluate current staffing and funding levels and compare levels to best practices. We proposed an article for town meeting to fund the study from 2013 FY13 free cash, or is it FY14? Sorry, FY14 free cash. The town meeting did not support the article despite the select board endorsement. If we need to perform that, the analysis is needed. There's no question about it. Doing it in-house it'll take a lot longer to do it in-house because I don't think there's anyone working for the town right now that possesses that specific knowledge of industry best practices. Fleet management. In 2012, there was a comprehensive fleet allocation report done. And so we want to make sure that if you're going to come up with a plan, you stick with it. And we just want to continue to work to ensure that the vehicle and equipment purchases comply with that report. I had heard some concerns expressed about the report, and one of the things that we were hoping to accomplish with our resource allocation study was to have a peer review of that fleet allocation report. Unfortunately, as we just mentioned, that we did not receive the funds to do the necessary consulting work. That's something we'll have to figure out, either to budget for in fiscal year 2015 or to try and figure out how to do in-house. Another thing we're doing is we are installing GPS units in the DPW vehicles to make sure that our vehicle use policies are being adhered to, and to also, based on the presentations I've seen for both the GPS units and the work management system, the two of them combined will, I think, definitely yield greater efficiency in terms of deploying resources, managing work, and just overall, efficiency of the department. there's no provision for discipline under our collective bargaining agreement, but we certainly can track the use of vehicles and determine, is the department, are they where they're supposed to be, or are they not? And I think the collection of that data will help also be a valuable management tool. Now, these other actions are a few other things that we've done that don't necessarily fit into one of those 5 top concerns. Bless you. One is working with union leadership to develop support for planned changes. I think buy-in at the ground level is important if we're really going to strive for improvement. I did address the entire department and listen to them about I listened to their views about how things were going and their concerns, and got some good advice from them, and also set forth what my vision of the organization is and what I think that the board's and the town's expectations of them are. I'm, from what I'm told, the first town manager to ever do that. We have also established a safety committee within the department that is both managers and union personnel, which is also a first for the department. And it's that collaboration that will help improve work safety for the whole department and redress some of the issues that have been lingering with regards to safety. One of the things we've heard about is there is an afternoon break that the employees are entitled to, and we understand that sometimes it can disrupt the flow of the work, and so we're working with the union to try and find a way to eliminate the afternoon break. And then the other action we're doing is continuing, even though we're not in the middle of a project, we're going to continue our weekly meetings just to go over general operational issues and to keep that feedback loop open. This is something I just learned about at 5:30, and I thought it was important to put in here because we've talked about the sewer jet truck and how often that is used and why that is used, and I think it's emblematic of what could be perceived as a problem with the DPW, but the truck, amongst other efforts, is a central factor in our sewer main maintenance program, and we have been nominated for an award by Maya, which is our insurance company that is an arm of the Massachusetts Municipal Association, for a Excellence in Loss Control Award. And this is an email from our Maya representative, Bob Marinelli. And I just, if you'll permit me to read it, just want to drop you a quick note to let you know that I have nominated the town of Longmeadow for Maya's 2013 Excellence in Loss Control Award. The nomination was made mainly due to the efforts over recent years to control loss exposures in the area of sewer operations. The town's commitment in this area is paying off as sewer backup claims have declined in both frequency and severity, resulting in significant improvement in the overall loss experience for the town. With this nomination, I recognize the safety committee members and efforts for keeping the ball rolling in all areas of risk management for the town. And this is what he submitted on behalf of the town to Maya. The town of Longmeadow has an active safety committee that has met consistently for nearly a decade. The town suffered from poor loss experience for many years in the area of sewer backup claims. For the past few years, town officials made commitment to address this issue by allocating resources for proactive measures. Since the inception of this program, the town's loss experience has reduced dramatically and sewer backup claims have significantly dropped off. The town consistently participates in the Meyer Awards program and is among the leading Western Mass members in dollars earned in rewards. And I think a lot of the stuff that is done that is positive sometimes doesn't get recognized. Certainly the stuff that is done that is not positive, does get recognized. So I want to just show the other side of the coin. And also, this success is the town's success, including the select boards. Paul Pasterzik is a big part of this. So, this is not just the DPW. The sewer division is certainly leading the way, but this is a town-wide victory just being nominated. And it's something we should all be proud of. Next slide. So, I just threw these in here, and these are just 5 items that have happened just since I've been here in April that are significant events that the DPW really stepped up on that are beyond all of the other work that I've outlined that they perform on a day-in, day-out basis. They provided, as the high school project has been drawing to a close, there has been some work that has been some change order work by virtue of some things that have happened. Part of the project is a rehab of one of the original buildings. I call it Building A for the project. That any money spent on the renovation of the building is 100% town funds, not reimbursable through the MSBA. And there have been times where work has been needed, and rather than pay through the general contract with contractor markups, we've been able to perform the work at a significant savings internally. And it's ranged from things outside to electrical work, and the director who has served on the committee, I believe since its inception, has always answered the call when the high school project has needed it. When they dedicated the building, there was a tremendous amount of behind-the-scenes work that went into the dedication ceremony, which I think by all accounts was a wonderful event. The Wounded Warriors 5K race, which was one of the biggest road races in Western Mass and the biggest Veterans Day event that the town has done in anyone's memory, would not have come off the way it did without the help of the Department of Public Works. Especially, I don't want to single out Chris Reed for his role in that as well. Excuse me. As everyone knows, we've been spending a significant amount of time over the past few months preparing for the Springfield development, the Springfield Casino development, and what that means for us as a surrounding community. The Department of Public Works, especially the town engineer, have played a vital role in helping analyze those impacts and develop and help make recommended mitigation strategies for the board's consideration. And then, and we've talked about this before, we are very close to signing a new 3-year solid waste disposal contract. That's not the people who come get it from your driveway. It's the place where those trucks take it. That will be a substantial cost savings for the town compared to what we're paying now. And the director of the department was instrumental in helping with those negotiations. So these are not annual tasks that they do. These are 5 things that are just, like I said, and this is just since I've been here. So I want to commend them for that extra work. Excuse me. So next steps. So developing strategies for analyzing resources and structure. This is something the Collins Center may have some resources for this, and we will certainly mine for any information or any assistance they can provide through our StatNet project. Focusing on rollout of planned actions, the work management system, and the GPS. As everybody knows, software is garbage in, garbage out, and so we want to build in ways to evaluate the effectiveness and to make sure that this new technology, we get the most out of it, and we feed it the information and data it needs to be successful, which will in turn lead us to be successful. We want to develop performance standards. There's a maintenance management system model that Richard has shared with me that I think is an excellent platform to work off of. And I was step 1 in that is get staff involved, and I think we've done a good job getting the staff involved and taking that first step. And then continue to review the outsourcing, insourcing work. And as a part of that, and this came up, I think there's a couple of issues out there that we are working on. I think the most public one was the trash collection. Make sure that we are doing a good job managing our contracts. And, if there's a contract issue, that we are doing everything we can to follow up to protect the town's interest and get the work we are supposed to be getting for the price we're supposed to be paying. And then finally, and I shouldn't say finally, there are many things that need to be done, and there's a lot of work ahead of us. So this list, again, is not exhaustive. We want to refine our personnel management practices, and we want to, and again, continue the dialogue with the union and find ways that we can work together to make the department the best it can be. And I just want to point out the graphic I had put in there to illustrate the point that we really want to continue to climb that hill towards improvement, but there's not an end goal. And then I, at the last minute, put that quote in, which is one of my favorites, from Vince Lombardi. It says, "Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence." And I wanted to highlight that because the Department of Public Works will never be perfect. There's never going to be a moment where we sit here and say, yep, they've done it all. There's nothing out there that needs to be done. And every single employee that works there has been perfect all year. I don't think anyone can say that about any of us. And so I know the department, both from top to bottom, the department cares about their work. They want to do a good job. And with the right leadership, they are committed to pursuing perfection in the hopes of achieving excellence.